Okay, ooh, that was a clean clap. Okay, so here we are with Ward Arc 2, which is Flare. So essentially, this arc can be divided into 3 sections. Section 1 is Vicky doing superhero interviews, which, I don't know, it's number 1, that's just kind of a fun idea, but it also reminds me of like those Caleb City sketches. Oh, dude, he uploaded recently and it was so good. I'm sorry, Caleb City is one of those YouTubers, like, anytime I see a notification, unless I'm, like, in court or something like that, it's like, it is a drop everything and just watch it real quick. But the superhero interviews were pretty fun. I do remember the Fallen from Worm. She doesn't interview with them, but she's interviewing with one group, and the Fallen are there and are starting to cause some trouble. They're not hurting anybody, but they're trying to recruit more people into their cult, and it almost starts to escalate into a riot. And essentially, because she was actively trying to help people and not just let the sleeping dogs lie, she doesn't get onto that team. But what I remember about the Fallen is, number 1, I remember the leader, I think his name was like Valfor. Like, I don't remember him super well. I just remember Taylor putting maggots in his eyes. That was one of those Taylor moments that really stuck with me. Just the, I mean, that's cool, but, But I also remember thinking the idea was super interesting. They're a cult of parahumans that worship the Endbringers and try to model themselves after the Endbringers. And I don't know, as somebody who thinks the Endbringers are super cool, that is super neat. And, sorry, brain stop for a second. It's interesting that they kind of have more clout because they were the ones preaching the world is going to end, and the world did. But they were still wrong, because while they said the world was going to end, they clearly thought the Endbringers were going to be the ones to do it. And not only were the Endbringers not the ones to do it, they also helped save the world from Zion. Which, I mean, obviously, not everyone knows what really super went down in Gold Morning. I almost called it Big Morning. I don't know, that almost slipped out. Like, that's not correct. And I think it's because I like to call Zion Big Z during Big Morning. But anyways, it's, I don't know, I kind of find that interesting. It's, it's like doing a math assignment and you got the answer right, but your work was wrong. But they have a lot more clout because they still got the answer right. I just think that's kind of interesting. And also, after Vicky's had a long day, a pretty shitty day, after all these interviews and nothing went well, she goes to a hospital. Actually, she ends up visiting, like, Tempera, Crystal Clear, and Fume Hood. And they all, like, exchange numbers. Let's keep in contact. So I'm assuming they're going to be recurring characters throughout Ward. Maybe just for, like, the opening parts of it. I don't know. Crystal Clear got the interlude. So I'm assuming they're still going to have some kind of presence. And then she does, I think they call it Crisis Point, which is when heroes would go to hospitals. I don't know if it was just hospitals. They might have, like, done it to schools and such, too. But essentially to be there to, like, visit the sick kids or the kids that really aren't doing too well and just cheer them up. And you just get this little section of Vicky taking sick kids out to go fly and, making sure it's cleared with their parents, all the, like, legal stuff is taken care of. But I'm reading it and thinking, I remember Taylor interacting with kids, like troubled kids, and kind of sitting them down and saying, okay, kids, we're going to play parahuman D&D so you understand what it's like to have powers. It sucks. Okay, roll for your powers. Like, roll for your trigger event. I don't get to pick my event? No, that's not how it works. Cool, this is your power. Roll for the downsides. What do you mean I have to have a downside? Every power has a downside. Roll. Oh, look, I rolled a 20. An Endbringer attacked. You rolled a 2. You died to the Endbringer. Like, it was, number 1, parahuman D&D would be awesome. I think it's either in this arc or the next one where they mention that, like, Glory Girl has a trading card. I'm like, okay, like, a parahuman TCG would also go kind of hard. I would definitely collect those. I probably wouldn't because they get scalped, but assuming I'm able to, I would totally love to, even if I'm not actively playing the game. Oh, no. Sorry, I just thought of, like, a Worm Magic crossover. Just Taylor as a commander. Oh, gosh. What kind of stupid shit could she do? I don't know. Would she be like a populate kind of? It would almost be like would she be like the Slither Queen? It's like, as long as you have like your bug tokens, here's the like dumb shit you can do. Could we get Embraer commanders? Ooh, anyways, I'm sorry, now I'm just remembering. Sorry, I know I'm going on like a super tangent, but my friend Lily had an Eldrazi deck, and the sleeves were these like bright yellow. So we called it like the craft singles deck, and the commander was Ulamog. And it's, yeah, every time Ulamog swings, what is it? You have to like mill 10 or mill 20. Like, the thing was nasty. And I'm just thinking, it's like, yeah, could you just have an Endbringer do that? Like, Behemoth has the kill aura, or almost as a reference to the fact that, yeah, like, what is it? 1 in every 4 of you, or 1 in every 3 of you will die. It's like you have to mill that many cards just like from your deck. Now I want this. I want Parahuman Commander. Dang it, I will... anyways, I'm getting super off topic. But I'm just remembering, it's like, this is how Taylor deals with kids. This is how Vicky deals with kids. And like, she's, at least so far, she seems like she is a more likable character than Taylor. And I say this as number one, I'm not trying to say I already like her and her story more, because even when Taylor's not a likable person, she's such an interesting character. I still think Amy is my favorite character in Worm, because like, everything about the way her... Like, I was talking to my friend about it yesterday. Not yesterday, it was a few days ago. But we had, like, a long conversation just about Worm and, like, some things about Ward. And I was saying to him, Panacea is my favorite character because I find her to be such an interesting person. I'm not gonna say she's a good person. I don't think she is. I don't think she's necessarily a bad person either. But she's so interesting that I'm like, this is like, almost anything to do with her is one of my favorite parts of the story. Taylor is also, I think, a really interesting person. And even when I hard disagree with what she's doing or think she's being way too obstinate, which happens a lot, I can understand why she makes the decisions she makes. And I feel like with Taylor, even when she's being contradictory or hypocritical, it's in a way that works, and not in like a, man, like, I feel like when she's being hypocritical, it's not because she's acting out of character, it's because she's really good at moving the goalposts, and really good at justifying her own actions, whether the justifications hold weight or not. And that makes her a really interesting person. Vicky, with all of her baggage, is also a very interesting person. So far, she seems more like genuinely likable and personable, which also, given Taylor's history, I understand why she isn't. And as I said in part 1, I am excited to see how that continues, how that changes, and how that plays out. Because for all I know, by the end of Ward, I'm going to be like, Vicky, I am sick of you. Like, I'm sorry, girl, I get it. But what are we doing? We're not at that part yet. Again, just her, like, taking kids to go fly, to cheer them. Like, I've had a bad day. Maybe I can make someone else's day better. Is just so sweet. Like, she feels way more inherently heroic than Taylor ever was. And I don't mean that as a criticism of... I think that's what I'm trying to get to. Like, I'm not trying to criticize Taylor, although there's a lot you can criticize her for. It's more of just noting the comparisons. And I've read a bit of... I mean, I guess I'll get to it when I get to the third chunk of it. But the team, despite some of their eccentricities, this team seems inherently more heroic than the Undersiders, which makes sense. The Undersiders were literally a team of villains. Like, as much as I love Lisa, Lisa's a terrible person. And she never really gets better. She has some sympathetic qualities, I feel like, notably her friendship with Taylor, but also kind of an awful human being. So far, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. This story so far, the characters seem easier to root for, which on the one hand is a good thing, and on the other hand, it's one of the things I found so interesting about Worm. And I guess I'm really looking forward to seeing how gray Ward gets, and does it get there without like feeling too bleak. We'll see. But the next chunk is just the broken trigger event, where there's a dude who has like a tree coming out of his mouth. At one point, Vicky's describing this origami road woman. I'm like, oh, that's such a cool description. Like, what? Like, it sounds insane. So they don't super explain what a broken trigger is, but what it seems to be, and I won't lie, I did look it up to just kind of get some of my lore, which means I got spoiled on some stuff, so I'll hit that. But the way it's described, it sounds like it's a mass trigger, like a cluster trigger, with a lot of people getting powers, but the powers don't stick. Like, you get the trigger visions of, like, what is it, like a giant egg or something? I might be misremembering that part. Because I remember you see that in, Brandish's interlude in Worm, where you see it's like her and Photon having their like shared moment and shit. But like you get that, but you're only getting like bits and pieces, but the other people in the area are seeing it too. And I think they said there's like 90 people that were affected and all of them died, or like all but, excuse me, maybe one of them died. And they are highly unstable. And it's like the part of your brain where the passenger resides. Like it's like the passenger doesn't, what's the word I want? Like fuse, mesh, meld. It's like they don't combine quite right, and the person dies. And like the power goes super out of control. I think one of the ways that this was either something I read or it was mentioned in the story, it might have been both. It's essentially the Manson effect doesn't apply. It's you can still be hurt by your powers, which is, you know, often what leads to them dying. So looking it up, it sounds like what a broken trigger is. This is stuff it sounded like this did not happen before Gold Morning, but after Big Z passed away, trigger events don't always, I guess they're not always grounded. I don't know if that's quite the right word. The passenger, I guess that's a better way of saying it. Now in trigger events, sometimes the passenger will go rogue, and instead of fully fusing with someone or kind of, you know, letting themselves like combine, the passenger breaks protocol and still tries to maintain control, doesn't protect the host, and that kills them. And apparently that can happen during second triggers, because I learned about that. And as I'm like, okay, this is, I remember like reading about it and thinking to myself, I don't think I should be on this part of the wiki right now. Like, this is spoilers. This is major spoilers. But this is really cool lore that I'm learning, and I kind of want to learn more. Oh, here's a list of titans, as they're referred to. Like, okay, I recognize some of those names. Whoops. So I know some of that. I know it's like a full spoiler thing, but I guess I won't name drop any of them right now. But I've already, at least from the list I saw, because like there were a lot of names I saw, I was like, I have no idea who any of these people are. There's one name from Ward already that I recognize. I think there's actually a couple. And there's a notable name from Worm that I recognized. But, yeah, it's like that's a thing. Oh, yeah, also during the Broken Trigger event, Vicky gets a new logo. Because she's specifically not, she doesn't correct people if they recognize her as Glory Girl. She just kind of says, like, that's not me anymore. But she doesn't have a new name, but her new logo is like a star. And I don't know, I think that's cool. I think that, what's her new name? Because she hasn't gotten it yet, but I saw it's like Antares. I think it's like a star from Jupiter or something. I'm not super familiar with it. I assume we'll get it soon-ish, maybe like arc 4 or 5. I don't know. Maybe it is going to be in the last half of arc 3. But that was the second chunk. Then she talks to Best Girl Jessica, who asks Vicky for a favor. And the favor is that Vicky attends superhero group therapy because the group that Jessica is overseeing want to make their own hero team. And Vicky is there to, number one, I guess it's like a few things. Like, number one, to talk them out of it, but not officially. To two, talk them through the logistics. And like, all right, this is the kind of like, so branding stuff you'd have to know. Making money is super important. You know, you have to have a good image. One thing that they talked about that I thought was really interesting, because it makes a lot of sense, is as a hero, you strike a very important balance of, you have to do your job. You have to do your job well. Like, you have to do well enough and be well known enough that people like you, people support you, and they want to give you money. But if you do your job too well and there's like no crime, now people don't think they need you anymore. And that's not an incentive to not do as well as you should, but it is something that happens where people will start to think, well, there's no crime, we don't need heroes anymore. Not pay the heroes disband, now there's villains again. Alternatively, if you don't do a good job, or you can't get your name out there, like attached to the work you're doing, no one's gonna care about you, and you're not gonna make any money. And it's one thing in superhero stories. It's a more recent trend, at least, that I've noticed with things like One Punch Man and My Hero, that really do focus on that idea of branding. Like, you can't just help people. You have to, just using the word brand, it's like you have to make sure that people know you and that they like you. And you keep that like faith and respect and that trust, because otherwise, when they turn on you, you know, you lose your job. And I don't know, I just find that interesting, especially because I was watching My Hero in law school, and something you hear a lot in law school is like, look, it's a very competitive field. And it was kind of being framed in the same way, which made it, at least for me, a bit more of it. And not to say that I like My Hero was boring, otherwise I really enjoyed it, but it made it more interesting to me, because it made it more relatable to me. And it's an aspect of Worm, and I guess really with Ward as well, that I'm finding interesting. Actually, I'm also finding interesting. But we get to meet the squad. So we meet Kenzie, who, and I know now that I'm partway through part 3, I also kind of know what some of their powers are. So Kenzie is the Tinker, and the one thing I know about Kenzie, because I remember my friend telling me about this before I had started War, this was like last year, and I've seen it just kind of other memes. I know everything is a camera. And I know that it's like crazy, because I think he had described to me at one point, like, oh yeah, like a teleporter or things that can go like across dimensions, it's a camera. Like, don't worry about it, but that's just, keep that in mind when you start Ward. Everything is a camera. So she is someone who speaks her mind. I don't want to say she doesn't have a filter, but it almost feels like she doesn't have a filter, but she's not mean about it. Like, she's very nice. She lets people know, like, when she thinks that something, like, that's just neat. She has like this unique style of dress. She's just kind of precious. I like Kenzie a lot already, but it sounds like in her life not a lot of people have. She said that she's had to move around a lot. She mentions that, I think she said, like, there's only been 3 times in my life where I've ever felt wanted. The first led to my trigger. The second was the Baltimore Wards, who no longer want anything to do with me. And the third is here with this team. So it seems like Kenzie is someone who has a lot of abandonment issues. We have Sveta, who I know from Worm, who talks about how Vicky was her first friend, and like she starts crying when she sees Victoria. Victoria starts crying when she sees her, and I'm like, this is just sweet. I love this. She's still in a relationship with Weld. She has a conversation. They talk about how when she first met Capricorn, he's like, I'm Weld's biggest fan, and she's like, I actually am. Like, I'm dating him, and you're like, all right, I literally can't beat the girlfriend, but I guess I'm number 2. But she talks about how she's still very close to Weld, how she now has an actual body, and it's a lot nicer. She can move. It makes her feel a bit more human. But what she's worried about is toxic attachment, that as much as she genuinely loves Weld and he genuinely loves her, she worries for her own independence and self-sufficiency. And I that was something I thought was really interesting. I just want to say, like, it's something I find interesting as a concept because it makes a lot of sense to me. It's a combination of, I don't want to be a burden, but I want to also make sure I am my own person. And I really like that. We have Chris, who's the one, he's quiet, he's guarded, like he hides behind his headphones, which I thought was kind of interesting, but he's also kind of an ass. It's like if Kenzie is unfiltered but says nice things, Chris is unfiltered and kind of a dick. And I think it's Jessica who says, Chris is someone who thinks he's very clever even when he's being mean, and he focuses more on the fact that he said something clever than the fact that he said something mean. And so his power, I guess, so Kenzie's a tinker. Sveta has, the weird tendril things, and it sounds like because she has the prosthetic body, it's more under control, but she can still use them. And I don't know, to me it feels like very Spider-Man-y, and I mean the best possible way, because that's like my favorite part of Spider-Man's kit are the web shooters. But that's how it sounds to me. I don't know, I think it's kind of neat. So Chris can transform, and his transformations are based on his emotional state. And it sounds like, I think they said he has like 5 or 7 of them. And I was kind of mentioning this earlier, that with Vicky's, not in this video, in a previous one, given Vicky's emotion, like manipulation, would she be able to change Chris's forms? Because I read part of I read the capture the flag thing, which was really fun. And like, she does hit him with a blast. And if I remember right, she kind of like, you stunned him and knocked him on his ass, but it didn't transform him. So it might have been that she can't, or she just didn't use enough with that to force a transformation. So I don't know, but that could be interesting. But you also see, again, with Chris being very guarded, they make a point that he did not start sharing in the sessions until a while in, and now that someone new is in the sessions, he's like, I don't feel comfortable sharing my stuff with her. And I was like, that's totally fair. We have the twins, Tristan and Byron, and I'm laughing as I say twins. If you're familiar, you kind of know why. Case 70 is interesting. So this is twins triggering at the same time while in physical contact, and then they share a body where one person is in charge and then the other, like, they can switch off to the other person. And Tristan and Byron have a system. I think they said it's like every 2 hours or so. I might have the number wrong. And like when Tristan's in charge, Byron's there. He's aware. He's just chilling, and like vice versa. So they're Capricorn. They used to be part of a team. And kind of like Vicky, like they understand a lot of the logistics, and she's kind of noticed, like, okay, I'm not officially trying to talk them out of it, but I'm kind of trying to talk them out of it. He's one of the harder ones to talk out of it because he knows a lot of the stuff I'm talking about, and it seems like he has an idea. So the power is when Tristan's in charge, he can just create matter. And when Byron's in charge, he can waterbend. And it was something like, when they switch, the things that Tristan makes stay, I think it was like the temporary creations become permanent. And then when Byron switches, like his water explodes. I think that was it. And I don't know, I think that's kind of neat. We have Rain, who is the one that's part of the cluster trigger. And the other parts of the cluster are trying to kill him as part of the kiss-kill dynamic. Rain has a friend that he's very close to that he obviously really likes. His power is so cool. And not just the individual things. It sounds like the individual thing is like he shoots an Eldritch Blast that breaks things or makes things like easier to break. Which is kind of neat, and it does work on living matter. He's like, yeah, like I shot it, like it was like a goat or a cow, And then not long after, like, it just, like, split open or something. I was like, okay, that's pretty neat. But, so every member of the cluster has their own individual power. I think it was like, one is a tinker that I think it was like can make arms, is what he had said. Did I write them all down? No, I did not write all the powers down. Whoops. But I know it's like, his is the blast. I think one's a tinker. Snag is one. So you got the emotion manipulating powers. But he says the powers wax and wane, where on some days, like, Snag's power will be a lot stronger. Some days my power will be a lot stronger. And it's just a weird relationship that the powers all have. It's like we all have our own unique power, and we also have the other people's powers, but they're, like, significantly weaker. And there's a lot of stuff I like about this series. Like, I will say, dude, I love just the human moments. And I do, and I mean that. And I'm also like, man, I just kind of love the lore. Partially just, like, the weird creative way powers work, but also the weird creative way that powers work. Like, broken triggers and shit like that. Like, this is just so cool, like, to learn about. Oh, I just got spoiled on significant stuff. But this is so cool. I just love this. Then we have Ashley. So, first off, I have to make a correction, because I'm pretty sure I keep calling her Damsel in Distress, because I thought that was the name. It's Damsel of Distress. I thought Damsel in Distress was just kind of like a tongue-in-cheek thing. It's like, no, like, I'm this villain and I can do crazy shit, and it was meant to just be a joke. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Like, that the joke fits better. And that fits her character, because she's someone who's very proud. She has a lot of ego to her. And yeah, she wouldn't want to say that she's someone in distress. I'm of distress. I fuck shit up wherever I go. So, I'm not 100% sure what her power is. But during the capture the flag fight, like, she's like, it's like she's making these blasts and kind of like moving her body around with the recoil. I remember Vicky mentioning, it's like, yeah, I think the reason, like, her neck isn't breaking from the recoil is just because the Manson effect is protecting her. I'm like, yeah, that's cool and interesting. But I'm also just thinking of Bakugo and how Bakugo, like, actually used the explosions to fly and shit. I'm like, this is cool. This is super neat. I love this shit. She's probably my favorite so far. Like, aside from Victoria, like, I just like her. Like, I'm gonna enjoy this character. She's a piece of shit. So I guess that's the thing also. It's like, so why everyone is in the group? It sounds like for the most part, I guess I don't super know Byron and Trista. Like, aside, like, K70, like, I would understand needing therapy for that. I assume there might be more as well from the stuff in Glowworm, the issues with the previous team. But Rain specifically is like, I just got powers in this cluster, and one of the big reasons we want to make a hero team is to protect me and save my life. Ashley's another one with a clear purpose, which is, I don't think this is going to work. There is a point when all of this fails, like, hey, not fails, crash and burns. That's important, because if we just fail one time, you're going to say that's the failure, walk away. We have to crash and burn first. Fine. When all this crashes and burns, I'm going to go back to being a villain. But I want to learn as much as I can about heroes and how they work, so I have a better chance of fighting them when I go back to my old ways. Makes sense. There's also this one part, because she's one of the SNK clones, and she specifically says that I'm not gonna die this time, and I know she does. So, like, that's foreshadowing. That's fun. Yeah, I think that's kind of all I really have to say about the group therapy. So that's basically the main stuff that happened in the arc. So now I'm just kind of going to go over some of my just, like, other observations that I want to point out, and then talk a little bit about the interlude at the end. So, other notes, yeah, I mentioned the Glory Girl having her own trading card, and that, yeah, Parahuman card game would be fun. A Magic crossover would be really fun. I've started playing Strive, and it's fun because fighting games are fun. A worm fighting game would be fun. Like, I don't know how a lot of people... Like, I don't know how you would do Imp. I guess you could go invisible, but then, you know, you as the player wouldn't be able to do anything. I feel like she would work as an assist character. Like, maybe she's part of Regent's kit. Because I've imagined that, like, the way Regent works, it's probably like, Regent... and then, like, in parentheses, and Shatterbird, and him, like, using her as a puppet character. So, like, that could be how Regent works. That'd be super interesting. Like, you have Regent who can do, like, weird, like, grabs or, like, some, like, short range, like, messing with people. But then can, like, do Shatterbird. He can, like, maybe use Shadowstalker. He could use Imp for some things. And then, yeah, like, his super would be, like, what he did to Shadowstalker. Like, oh, man, that would be sick. Sorry, now my brain going, playable Endbringer? That sounds super broken. But also thinking, okay, like, you know, some fighting games, you know, you have, like, tag system, you got, like, a 3v3. Could you do a thing where, like, if you're playing the game and it's, like, a 3v3 fighter, if someone picks an Endbringer because they're, like, so powerful, it counts for all 3 of their slots? That would actually be super neat. Like, yeah, because this is such an intentionally broken character, it's Behemoth. The other person gets to use all of their extra characters because they're gonna need it against you. You're a terrible person for picking Behemoth in a tournament. Like, I don't know, I think that'd be kind of fun. But, there was that. There's this scene, I think it's how the arc starts, of Victoria trying to find scissors in Crystal's home so she can open, like, a package of bacon to cook it. Crystal does not have scissors in her home. Instead, she just uses her power, makes a little laser, and just cuts the thing. Like, I thought that was really fun. So when Vicky's at the hospital, yeah, like, with the kids and visiting Fume Hood and them, she mentions that the hospital is still under construction while it's being used, which I love for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's kind of just a really good job of showing this is how the world is recovering and how it's functioning, and it's not functioning very well. Like, yeah, we're still building essential services while we're using them because a combination of the need is that high and our ability to meet our need is that low. But, like, a month ago, I watched Playtime, and there's an extended sequence in Playtime of a restaurant on opening day, but it's still under construction, and there's so many good visual gags with it. I think my favorite is still the trying to, like, glue the tiles on the floor, and a dude walks across, and then, like, he just drags the tile with him. Or the freaking doorman, like, the door shattered, so he just pretends that there's still a door there. It's so funny. It's great. They talk about, when they introduce Ashley, the Boston Games, which is a lot of, like, the big time villains in Boston were starting to get busted, which created a power vacuum, which meant a lot of, like, you know, other B-listers, but people from other cities were going to Boston to fill that vacuum, and they called that the Boston Games. And Vicky's like, oh no, yeah, like, I didn't have powers at that time, but my family was in there, they were doing stuff, and, you know, they had, like, a big board of all the different players, you know, this person's here and this person's here. And then, you know, when they'd get killed or they'd get arrested or they'd leave the city, you know, you move them, but then, like, 3 other people come in, like, oh, this is cool. This is a spinoff I would... It's like when I read the Travelers interlude, I'm like, this is a spinoff. I would read the whole thing. It's incredible. The Boston Game sounds like it would be a really fun spinoff. Like, I could see this as... Like, so I'm imagining, like, on TV. Like, this could be a mini-series that I would get really into. Oh, yeah, the parahuman card. So, during the group therapy session, Vicky says, like, yo, there should be, like, anytime you become a parahuman, you should get a card that on one side says, handle with care, and on the other side says, shit's complicated, don't ask. And it's something they referenced a few times throughout the arc, and I really liked that. Okay, it's like, I talked about that, like, the media and the marketing I thought was really interesting. Oh yeah, there's a point where Vicky just kind of talks about her resume and just a lot of the stuff she's done. Like, no, yeah, it's like I've been around capes all my life. I practiced for a few years. I survived an Endbringer fight. I survived an encounter with the 9. It's like I did an Endbringer, I did the 9, Gold Morning. Like that is quite the resume. Like that is pretty badass. These next 2 notes go together where there's this line she says, I believe in second chances, but not in every circumstance. And then later, I don't remember if this was if she said this aloud or if she was saying it to herself, where she says, Amy's not family. And that, like, those few words really say a lot. And there's also this, I think it's like both Capricorn and Sveta are talking about this. They're talking about, like the difficulties of being a hero. Because I think the way Vicky describes it as, it's a very unfair field. Like with the way the media will treat you, the way that, villains will treat you in fights. It's like rolling a die. Like imagine you're rolling a 6-sided die, or even a 20-sided. Let's go with that. You're rolling a 20-sided die and you get a 1 8 times in a row. Just because you've had that run of bad luck and you need that good one, it doesn't mean you're gonna get the 20 the next time. It's not fair in that regard. Your chance the 9th time is just as high and just as low as it was the first 8. And I think it was Capricorn that had said that's true, but you always have a chance of getting that 20 as long as you keep rolling. Your chances of getting something good are high as long as you keep trying, and that's what we want to do. We understand this is difficult, we understand this is not fair, but we still want to try. And I feel like that is going to be a major theme in Ward going forward, in addition to like forgiveness and being able to heal. Is like you meet the Robinsons. Keep moving forward. You have to keep trying. You can't give up. So that was the arc. And then going over the interlude really quick, it was crystal clear. We get a bit of how his powers works. Like he can see through walls, but he can't see faces and he can't see colors. I thought that was kind of interesting. They talk about his trigger event, which was, so he was raised by his aunt, and he found and like did jobs for her, and then found out that his aunt had kidnapped him as a child and that he was like running drugs and shit. And it was that betrayal and realizing that he didn't clearly see the situation that caused him to trigger. And I thought that was really neat. I hate saying it in that way. It's like, oh, that's such a neat thing to have. Like, it's interesting. I don't want to say like, oh, your trigger event, the most traumatic thing to happen. Yeah, that's neat. But I thought it was really interesting. And they mentioned that on Earth Gimel, mayoral elections are happening, and one of the candidates is Sierra. And I'm like, oh, I recognize that person. I recognize that name. That's involved the underside. Oh, right. Something else that happened in the arc that I forgot is after group therapy, Vicky's like, okay, I'm going to be y'all's coach. I remember I said there was 3 things she was going to do, which was unofficially talking them out of it, officially trying to give them like genuine logistical advice, and number 3 being the coach and chaperone. So she goes to a town, like a city, like, okay, let me try to figure things out. Maybe this is where we can get established. And she gets a note from someone signed from Tattletale. So we're about to get her introduced to the story, and that's how Arc 3 starts. So I got that. And I don't know how much like screen time the Undersiders get, if they're still really, obviously I imagine they're going to be important from kind of like a lore perspective. But is it going to be, no, like they are recurring characters, like they are super important? Or is it like, no, you see them every now and then, but like, no, they're not main characters by any means anymore? I have no idea. I also don't know if Taylor ever shows up. Because I know the ending of Worm, like that last bit with her, is supposed to be kind of ambiguous as to, did she die? Like, did she die? And this is like her afterlife. Like, is it that like she is dying and this is like some shit that she's seeing at the end of her life? Because the 3 people that she sees and recognizes from her life are her mom, who is dead, her dad, who until that chapter was believed to be dead because she couldn't find him, and she sees Alec, someone that she knows that died. So maybe it's the afterlife, or maybe it's her dying dream interpretation of the afterlife, or it's legit. And so I imagine because of the ambiguity of it, and I feel like it's an intentional ambiguity, there's a high chance she doesn't not show up in Word. There's also a chance that at some point, like, no, she shows up, or they at least confirm that, yes, 100% she is alive. Because I believe at the end of Worm, it's like Lisa and the Undersiders believe she's alive, which could be a, yeah, it's legit and they're in the know. It could also be a, they were told that, but it's not the truth. And I don't know, we'll see or we won't see. Just like with Sleeper. Maybe Sleeper shows up and does stuff and we know what his powers are. Maybe we don't, and that's kind of half the fun. But so, that was Arc 2. That was Flare. I enjoyed it quite a bit. About halfway through Arc 3. I haven't listened to it the last few days, but I still want to finish it by the end of the week. Hopefully today or tomorrow I'll get around to it.